Campanero's leg never healed properly, and by the mid-70s the pain had become bad enough to put him in a wheelchair. One day he heard that the chief's mother had had a heart attack and was in a Chicago hospital. That was good news to him. His leg had been hurting and he wanted a shot at the chief. He figured the chief would come to Chicago to see his mother, so they would bump him off then. He had the hospital staked out with 6 of his men who were ordered to assassinate the chief if he came near the hospital. The chief was expecting Campanero to make a move, so he brought along his gun belt. He drove his motorhome up from Atlanta with Gator, Mike, Blackjack, Little Bear, and Angela, and parked across the street from the hospital. Joe scanned the rooftops of the surrounding tall buildings and said,
"Hey, Little Bear, reach into that cabinet and hand me my gun belt."
Little Bear was 15 and looked more Indian than white. His layered black hair hung down to his shoulders and was feathered back. He reached into the cabinet and carefully pulled out his father's gun belt, knowing the Colt was loaded. "Here you go, Dad," he said. In a sour tone, Angela said, "Do you really think it's necessary to wear your gun belt into the hospital?" "You don't know Campanero. I'll bet $1 to a donut hole the cocksucker makes a move." "Be for real, Duffy. He's not going to try to shoot you at the hospital in front of hundreds of people," said Angela. Campanero had haunted the chief every day of his life. Even when he was safe at sea, Joe still visualized his father being gunned down, and he knew how badly Campanero wanted to settle the score for getting shot in the leg. Joe saw Campanero as a rabid junkyard dog, and going to Chicago was like sneaking into Campanero's yard. Campanero's senses were keen, and he had wanted to kill the chief all his life. This was the first time the chief had shown his face in Chicago since Campanero took control, and there was no way Campanero would allow him to leave alive. The chief was nervous and tense, knowing what was at stake.
"Angela, you don't know shit," he told her. "Until you figure out which way is up, why don't you keep your mouth shut?"
Angela couldn't stand her husband treating her like she was stupid. She replied, "Hey, I don't have to take this shit. I'll leave your ass right now." "Yeah, right." Joe took the gun belt, contemplating whether or not he should leave his hat in the motorhome. He knew his hat would give him away, but the mafia would think he was afraid if he didn't wear it. The hat and jewelry were like his war paint. Without them, he wouldn't be the chief. Ashamed to show fear, he stepped out of the motorhome wearing his hat and faded black leather blazer. He checked the rooftops for snipers again as he strapped on his gun belt. The chief looked more like a cowboy than an Indian. His face was rounder than most Indians' faces, and his eyes were blue. His wavy black hair and long bushy sideburns had begun showing strands of gray, and his Fu Manchu-style mustache was doing the same, especially in the ends. The rest of his face and neck were covered with stubble. He hid his fear of getting shot in the back by pulling his hat down in the front. Standing behind the door for protection, he said, "I don't like this. You guys jump out and get over here." Mike spat on the street and said,
"Ah, so you're going to use us for a human shield. That way you won't get shot, but we will."
"Not if you hurry up. Let's go." The chief's men got out of the car and surrounded him. Angela was hesitant, but she finally jumped out, yelling, "Wait for me!" The 6